In 1999, Morpheus offered Neo a choice between a red pill and a blue pill. In 2018, this country fractured between red and blue. In 2022, I'm here to tell you that if you really want the truth, more voters are neither red or blue. Yet, they have no representation, no choice, and no options. They have to choose between candidates chosen by the red people or the blue people. I'm David Esrati, and I'm running for Congress as an American, as in red, white, and blue. I'm a veteran, an activist, and a small businessman. I'm asking you to join me in reminding the professional politicians in Congress who their bosses are. I support ranked choice voting, campaign finance reform, and a verified voter information system, all so we can stop having the best politicians money can buy. It's time to elect a veteran who will work for you, no matter what color they want to label you. Please go to electesrati.com and learn more. I'm David Esrati, and I approve this message. Jurassic Park, you thought those little baby dinosaurs were cute until they turned into out-of-control carnivores. That's sort of what happens to government when we elect people based on very expensive advertising campaigns and propaganda. I'm David Esrati. I'm a veteran and a small businessman running for Congress. You don't want professional ad people and pollsters to sway your vote. All those hot-button issues like gun control, abortion, borders are all politicized to stop you from voting rationally. And thinking rationally seems to be in short supply these days. Most Americans have been voting against their own best self-interest for a long time because we've allowed money to buy our leaders. 1 million Americans died in the last 2 years because our leaders couldn't lead. It wasn't that hard. Mask, distance, test, and then vaccinate. In an instant, we had billions to spend on healthcare for COVID, when for years we've been told we can't provide healthcare for everyone equally in this country. That's an unintended consequence of the pandemic. If you think about it, our government can pretty much do whatever it wants, or what the people who buy our politicians tell our leaders to do. We also had a ton of money to prop up businesses. The next thing you know, it turns out that a living wage was not only possible, but necessary. As a small businessman who won't sell you out to corporate interests and lobbyists, I can tell you that it's time to fully understand the consequences of companies like Amazon, Facebook, and Google and their effect on small business, and to remind you that small business is the #1 creator of jobs in this country. So this next election, don't trust this ad or any other political ad. Do your homework and think before you vote. It's time to put this ad man in Congress because I know that the best advertising is based on the truth, not the size of the budget or payola. Or you can just vote based on who has the money to buy their way into Congress and live with the consequences. I'm David Esrati, and I approve this message. Hi, I'm David Esrati. Welcome to my live stream town hall. Welcome to the viewers that are on Facebook and on YouTube. And the topic today comes because I had a candidates forum this morning. I've got one tonight, and I had one Monday night, and they just keep going over and over and over. And these candidate forums, it's rare that we have more actual voters than we do political junkies and friends of the campaign and politicians and their wives or entourages, but the last few have been pretty well attended. The problem is, in these cattle calls, basically everybody gets up and gives a 3-minute or imagine that 5-minute speech, and usually there's not a whole lot of question to answer because they got to move through all these candidates all at once. This is why debates are really critical, one-on-one for at least an hour, so that you can get an understanding of candidates. And not the kind of debates that we see where you have some moderator asking questions and saying 2 minutes, 2 minutes. No, debates where the candidates talk to each other and ask questions about their records or what they do or what their beliefs are. You don't see that anymore. In fact, you don't see anything of most of these candidates, and you don't know anything about them other than by going to a website and seeing things like saying, we'll lower taxes, we'll fight for workers, believes in, that's all BS. In fact, I don't think you really know who these people are or what they do. Now, let's go back to the days of our founding fathers and how they saw this working. They imagined a government, a volunteer, part-time government, where basically people in the community would pick somebody that they already knew to go and represent them at these higher levels. So you would get the people who had been successful in their community, been a leader in their community, were well known in their community, were understood in their community. But now we got communities that are huge, and nobody really knows what these people are thinking, what they've done, or what they say they're going to do, because all they get is 3-minute sound bites if they're lucky. The kinds of questions asked are generally pretty poor. Usually they're asked by somebody with a special interest or an agenda that they're trying to fulfill. And for instance, at the NAACP, one of the questions we had to answer was about gun control. Again, this is what I call a hot button, single issue voter type question. There are people who are, it's black or white. Either you're pro-gun or you're anti-gun, and there's no in between, and they get very upset if you're not along in their tribe. And for the most part, most of the people who are getting elected to various offices will have very little to do with gun control legislation. Except at the Ohio State House, where we've just passed law after law that lets any jackass have a gun and carry it concealed lately. So this morning, we got 3 minutes. Monday, I got 5 minutes. Those are still short speeches. And what we had were a whole bunch of proxies coming up for candidates and reading scripts that lasted 3 to 5 minutes. And some of them were very eloquent and future politician-like. But that brings to the question is, what is a politician? Where do you get this idea of what a politician should be? Because God knows, if we start looking at some of the examples of the people we've elected, it's scary. These aren't people that can go and mediate between people and negotiate a deal. They're a lot of my way or the highway, or they're busy clowning for the camera or for news coverage. I mean, there's not a whole lot of substance, and in terms of original thought, there is none. What have they done? What have they contributed to society? Please tell me what Marjorie Taylor Greene has done. Or how about Herschel Walker? Really? He played football. Is that really a qualification to be a senator? I'm sorry. Did I miss a memo somewhere? At some point, you would think that you have some body of work or some claim to fame or something you've done in the past that leads to qualifications to be a public official. And one thing Ryan McClellan, she said, I'm not a politician, I'm an elected representative. And I feel strongly that is the job. The job is to go out and talk to the people like you and ask, what's on your mind? What's important to you? And I tried to do that. Starting in 2005, I started blogging. And why did I start blogging? Well, partially because I was in the ad business and we were looking at this new open source content management system called WordPress. And we looked at a couple others, Joomla and Drupal, and luckily we picked WordPress, and I started teaching people how to use it. I figured I had to use it myself. And I also, like it or not, had to become, I'm supposed to be a advertising creative, and I have to write for a living. And so I started writing things and testing it on the blog and see what happened. And so I started writing every day and bringing up subjects and talking to people. And my writing got better and more interesting. And like this morning, I had a judge come up to me and said, anything new on the Aaron Hartley case? You're the one that broke that story. My wife was reading it. I'm not going to say which judge it was. But these people are thanking me for doing something that was supposed to be being done by the media. As to, I see we got Mark asking, what about Niraj Antani? His only real job was working at Chuck E. Cheese. I cannot fact check that. I'm going to trust Mark that it was almost true, but I know Niraj was a second-year law student when he became a state rep forcibly by forcing the Republican Party through 7 rounds of voting until they agreed to put him in charge. Somebody had stepped down or died in that district. And then once he's elected, he stayed in it because it's a Republican gerrymandered district, and then he ran for senator, became a senator. Now, Niraj he loves the camera. He loves to take credit. He loves to talk. He calls the reporters, do you need a quote? Do you need a quote? That's Niraj for you. I've gotten along with Niraj. I don't think he's the brightest bulb in the box. I really wish he'd go back to law school, finish his law degree, and go do something like be a public defender for all the people that he's screwed over the years. But that's beside the point. But I did have fun with him on April 1st. I think it was this year or last year. It's a little secret here. April 1st every year I write a post that has an awful lot of truth in it. And this one was about the carry and conceal. And I made out that Niraj had passed a new law and it talked... I called him up and read it to him. He said, you're not doxing me, are you? And I'm like, no. And I started reading it to him, and he was laughing his ass off. He said, some of my constituents would vote for that. And I think it was mandating everybody had to carry a gun from now on, or something like that. But I can't remember. But anyways, so Mark says he probably... anyways, thanks. So... but I started writing the blog. But besides that, I went to public meetings. I actively went and followed them and participated and spoke during the public session. I've run for office many times. I organized a thing called the South Park Social Capital, which was a for-profit development corporation owned by the neighborhood, where we were going to buy the old Oaks Lounge, which had become a problem in the neighborhood. We bought it and we tried to set it up. It's a long story, but either or, we stopped the place from being a problem, eyesore in the neighborhood. We also bought a place called the Beeline little corner grocery and fixed that up. It recently got torn down by the hospital, but I did that. I was neighborhood president. I've been precinct captain for 12 years, board leader for 4. I have run for office multiple times. I have hung 600 plus free basketball nets in the community. I've done exposés on the school board. I've exposed corruption in this community, including that by some pretty high up people, like when Commissioner Lieberman started sending a no-bid contract to her assistant John Theobald to the Wilderness Agency. I dug through 2,500 pages of public records and found out that they basically shoveled $200,000 to Richard Kaiser at the Wilderness Agency on invoices that said nothing. And then a couple months later, Theobald quit the county and announced that he was one of the founders of the Wilderness Agency. And he got put on the Montgomery County Veteran Service Commission, getting paid $10,000 a year for 2 meetings a month. So I've exposed corruption. I've gone to court. I've fought Mohammed Al-Hamdani with his illegal bus tour. You can find out about that if you search Goodbye Sunshine on the blog. I caught a bunch of people at a defense contractor all giving money to Congressman Steve Austria all on the same night. I exposed Aaron Hartley. I exposed the sheriff pepper spraying. I mean, I've done all these things, and I've been a community activist. I have taken a hit in my business for doing the things I believe in, by standing up to these people. When I went to the library on August 19th, 2017, it was a year and a day after my father had died. I was going to take pictures of the new $67 or $68 million library, and to have a quiet day thinking about my father. Instead, I got harassed by a rent-a-cop, thrown out of the library, told I was banned from the library, and I was doing what I had a right to do, which was to take photographs in a public place, in a public space, There is no guarantee of privacy. And I explained this to the guard. And I went to court, and then I had Judge Parker screw me. He didn't award attorney fees, even though I won. This is the sort of thing where you build up a repertoire of things where people turn to you. They ask you for help. And that's why I'm running for Congress, because I want to be the voice of the people. I want to represent you. So this morning I got a question, and I was totally unprepared for it. It says, what would be the first thing you would investigate if you were our new junior congressman? And I actually didn't answer what was the perfect setup. I sat there and I talked about, well, I'd investigate how many people in Congress were making money off the stock market and why they don't have like NASCAR uniforms with little patches all over their shirts and jackets and pants showing how much they've been bought by each of these huge corporations, which are contributing ungodly amounts to have the best politicians money could buy. So that's what I said. What I was supposed to talk about was I would ask why the FBI and the DOJ covered up the fact that Joey Williams was a convicted felon 3 years before he ran for office again, while he was working for them as a confidential human source, making tapes and pointing fingers in the culture of corruption investigation with an agreement to resign if he got reelected. That's the answer I was supposed to give, but I wasn't thinking on that wavelength. But that'll happen anyways if the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals actually does its job and gives me the tapes that were played to the grand jury of Nan Whaley. Now, that's something that, the party's like, oh, you should drop that lawsuit now because you're a Democrat and she's a Democrat. Don't you want Nan to win? Well, I want a Democrat to win against Mike DeWine. I'll take any Democrat. I'll even take a crooked one. I don't care. His policies on gun control, his policies on charter schools, his policies on the environment, his extra taxes of people who are buying environmentally friendly electric vehicles. Everything about the man has been backwards and not forward thinking. Unless, of course, you're the Intel Corporation who got $1 billion of your tax dollars to go build in a cornfield. Mike DeWine is a human train wreck. He's a nice enough guy. He means well, but he's a puppet. And so is John Husted. And those guys are getting paid for. And we already know the householder investigation, how much money was stolen. We know what went on and who was paid off. And DeWine's a part of it. So anyways, back to, I got this question. I answered in a minute. In a minute, you're not going to get enough information to understand these things. In a minute, you're not going to also get a chance to reframe and ask another question. There has to be a better way to figure out who you are going to vote for, who you want, why you want them, and what they bring to the table. And I could give you a litany of reasons. Number one is I can't be bought. But the second thing is I actually want to engage with you. So I'm opening this on the floor. You can ask questions on Facebook. You can ask them on YouTube. What is important to you from your congressman? What are the questions you have for a candidate or for your congressman that you want to see happen in Washington, D.C.? I believe that we need to simplify our tax system because it's an unholy mess. And we need to figure out a way to employ a lot more people in the IRS to make sure taxes are collected appropriately. But even better, I think we need to start doing taxes that they're due month to month to month based on your last name. Just like everything else. Like we don't all go get our license plates for our cars the same time, do we? It's crazy. The April 15th tax deadline makes accountants like Mark have gray hair when they're like 20. There is no reason to do it all at the same time. The system needs to be simplified. There should be no way that anybody charges you extra to pay your employees. To pay into it $7 or $9 a month per employee just to pay their payroll. Accounting is accounting. I'm paying for the software. It shouldn't matter how many employees I have. That doesn't entitle you to more money. There has to be a better way to do this. When I changed my company from a sole proprietorship to an LLC during COVID, because if I'd fallen over dead, the company would have ceased to exist. as a sole proprietorship, I went to change it. The number of places that we had to change our EIN, our information, was ungodly. And there wasn't a checklist of where to go or how to do it. That's a mark of a government run amok. One of the things I do in my life is I am an information designer as well as an information creator. I work on interfaces. It's called user experience design or interface design, UI, user interface, user experience. And things that seem normal to me don't seem normal to other people because they make things way more complicated than they need to be. This goes back to when I was in high school trying to figure out how to keep the stats for a hockey game. Where did the guys take the shots from? Who was on the ice at the time? I made a system that worked way better than what they had before. This whole idea of the user experience of government is something that we don't have people talking about. It's something I'd like to talk about as the junior congressman from Ohio. That there has to be a way to present this information in ways that people can understand it and people can track it, including how much money you're getting from XYZ Corporation, that you're voting on something that they're involved with. It should be real easy to disqualify these people based on their donations, who's voting on what. But that system isn't in place because we don't have congressmen who want you to know where the money comes from. I'm not seeing any questions, folks. I see lots of you online, and I hope one of you is my dear friend Tam from Coral Gables, who's hopefully got internet by now. But if not, my thoughts are still with her, even though her boat sank. And we have a few things to announce. There's a new short on YouTube with George Carlin about electing politicians. You might want to check that out. There's also my 5-minute attempt at rapping, and no, I am not going to give Eminem a run for his money, but you should go and listen to it because all of you will be highly entertained. We have the 5-minute stump speech from the Greene County meeting on Monday, which some people say was the best stump speech ever. We're uploading the whole meeting from this morning, and there might be a 3-minute excerpt coming soon. We have added the George Carlin to our TikTok. We've added some more events next week. One will be Candidates Night on Tuesday at Omega Baptist Church. Another will be the Greene County Democratic Party meeting next Thursday.
What time?
They're both 6:30 for the candidates forum, and that's the 18th. That might not be next week.
That's 2 weeks from now.
That's 2 weeks from now. And the 20th is 2 weeks from now, and that's the Beaver Creek Democratic Party meeting. That's at 7. And tonight, Greater Dayton Real Estate Investors Association, GDREIA, is having a forum at 7 p.m. on LB Road. And if I'm not mistaken, that's down in Moraine, but I could be wrong. But all those are under the events tab on Elect As Right. So you can get those, you can add them to your calendar, you can show up. And of course, you can watch them later on because I film them because I believe you need to have information. By the way, my opponent, Mike Turner, has not shown up at anything. He's too busy to be seen with the common folk. Other things is we've got shirts, we've got hats, we've got Shepherd Ferry posters. We need donations. You can win a framed Shepherd Ferry poster by donating. We'll have random drawings. And trust me, it doesn't matter how much you donate, high or low, you can win that Shepherd Ferry poster. And there might be enough of them. Several of you do that. So we're on that. The Defund Politics shirt is hot off the press. I'm sure you want that. We have elections, not auctions. And then we have the Do Something shirt about gun control in Ohio. Other than that, you can also get on our site and go and join up with Reach, which gives you ability to bring in your contacts tie them to voters, and then reach out to the people you know and tell them about our campaign. I just had an old girlfriend come by and visit for a few minutes. And she's a registered Republican. And she said, I couldn't vote for you. Can I vote for you? Yeah, you can vote for me in November. The Republican, the Democrat, that's only in the primaries, folks. It's sad, but a lot of Americans don't understand these things. Also, I've heard both sides of issue 1 and issue 2 at these last few forums, and I got to tell you, both of them are shams. You should vote no on both of them, even though the way you hear it from the Republicans who are for both of them, they are seemingly different sides of the story. So issue 1 is on bail reform, and the fact is bail is bogus because rich people can always pay it and poor people, they can't. So they end up in jail, like the brother of the guy that I take care of. He's been in jail. Nobody's bailing him out. Why not? Probably because he's mentally ill and we don't know how to get him into a mental health care facility without money because we don't have health care for all in this country. Yet people like Aaron Hartley, who threatened to put a bullet in somebody's head, they haven't seen the inside of a jail cell yet and still running around on the outside doing all kinds of crazy things. But he's a lawyer, so he can just delay things all you want. So vote no on issue 1 because it should be up to the judge, local control. Then they say home rule, all that. And then the second one is issue 2, which is about Yellow Springs decided that there's lots of people in Yellow Springs who aren't U.S. citizens but have to pay taxes. They have to send their kids to school for the school board. They have to pick who their sheriff is, their mayor is and commissioners. And taxes that they pay, their property taxes and things. And they want to make it so anybody who lives in the community can vote on local issues, whether they're a citizen or not. It's called taxation without representation if you don't let them vote. Well, they say, oh, no, we can't have that. Oh, my God, foreigners. Well, that's not quite it. They're not voting at the state level. They're not voting at the national level. But they still pay those taxes as well. This is a choice by this community to be immersive and integrate these people into the community. And it's their right because we have home rule in the state of Ohio. But the Republicans are saying no. And one of the funky things about this is if we pass it, right now, if you're 17 and you are going to be 18 before November 8th, you are allowed to vote in the primary because you would make the choices then for the people you're going to vote for later. There is a possibility that this new law would ban that and say you have to be 18 to vote. So you would not be able to pick the choices for the election if you will be 18 on the election. And so vote no on both of those, no matter what you hear from other people. Straight from me to you. Also got to sit next to a potential future Supreme Court Justice today. Met the future potential Secretary of State today. Wonderful people if you vote for the Democrats. I've met Dave Yost. I've met Pat DeWine. These are not nice people, folks. Do yourself a favor. Even though I am not a Democrat with a D, according to the party, I'm a D for David. The rest of them, the Democrats, all good. Republicans, they need some work. Trust me on this. All right. At least until we get done with gerrymandering everything and turning me into the sacrificial lamb running against Mike Turner. I am going to wrap up. We will be here again tomorrow for another exciting opportunity to talk about something. I would love to see your comments. If you have questions or topic you want to see, drop them in comments because I see all of those. If you want to make a donation, the site's back up and working no matter what Stripe says. And go watch that rap. Go watch the George Carlin short vertical video, the TikTok version. And go watch my stump speech and see what you think. And then come back tomorrow with more. And Mark says, laughing my ass off. Republicans bad, Democrats good. Yeah, Mark, 2 legs, 4 legs good, 2 legs better. Yeah. No, the Republican candidates are just weak. I'm sorry. Not exactly brilliant folks. I've heard them speak. The candidates for the local Montgomery County judges, not so sharp. Republicans, in Greene County, you don't get a choice. They're all unopposed. So, hey, we need to throw some flavor into the system. Anyway, it's been real. It's been fun. Hopefully it's been real fun for you. And Mark says they're all weak. Mark, I am not weak other than this shoulder here, okay? Trust me. And with that, we will see you tomorrow. Thank you so much for tuning in. Take care and good night.